My name is Emily. I'm 27 years old, and this is the story of how my parents skipped my wedding to attend my sister's brunch. Yeah, you heard that right, a brunch. It still sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud. Like something you'd read in a viral Reddit post and think, that can't be real. But it happened. And it didn't just hurt, it changed everything. Growing up, I always knew I wasn't the favorite. My sister Rachel, 2 years older, was the shining star in our family. Blonde, bubbly, homecoming queen, straight-A student, and later the picture-perfect suburban wife and mother. My parents adored her. Me. I was the artistic one. The quiet, emotional, a bit too sensitive little sister who spent more time sketching in the margins of her notebook than trying to win popularity contests. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't unloved. I was just less loved, less celebrated, less praised, less seen. If Rachel brought home a B+, my mom would frame it. If I won a local art contest, my dad might say, "That's cool, Em," without even looking up from his phone. Still, I always told myself it was okay. That one day I'd get my moment. My wedding, that would be the moment. The day I'd finally be front and center with my family clapping just for me. So when Ryan proposed, I was over the moon. We'd been together for 3 years, and he knew me in ways my own family never bothered to. He loved the parts of me they ignored. The quiet, the quirky, the complex. We picked a date, June 3rd. A small garden ceremony just outside Boston, simple and meaningful, surrounded by people who mattered most. I couldn't wait to tell my parents. I invited them to lunch at a little diner near their house. I was giddy, practically vibrating. I brought mock-ups of the venue, ideas for the seating chart, even sample flower colors. They listened, smiled, nodded. I thought, maybe this time they'd show up for me. Then my mom said it. "Wait, did you say June 3rd? "Yeah." I smiled. "It's a Saturday. Perfect weather too, and the peonies will be in season." She exchanged a glance with my dad. That glance. The one that says, "You tell her." "That's the same weekend as Rachel's brunch," my mom said softly, as if I should have known. I blinked. Brunch. Yes, the one with Nate's family. You know, her in-laws. It's their formal meet and greet. I just sat there stunned. "You're not serious," I said. "It's important, honey," Dad chimed in. "Nate's family is very traditional. Rachel's nervous and she needs support." "She needs support," I repeated, my voice flat. "You'll understand when you're a mother," Mom added gently. That's when something inside me cracked. I had waited 27 years for my moment. Just one day. One event. One ceremony. And they were choosing AF brunch instead? I couldn't even speak. I just sat there, clutching my folder of wedding plans, while my mom sipped her coffee like she hadn't just shattered my heart. They always called me the strong one. I used to think it was a compliment. I wore it like armor, convinced it made me brave. But when you hear it enough times, you start to realize what they really mean is, "You don't need us. So we won't show up." That lunch with my parents replayed in my mind for days after. But truthfully, it wasn't new. It was just louder this time. More obvious. More permanent. Because this had been my life. Always second. Always an afterthought. When Rachel and I were little, we both loved dolls. She had an entire collection. Each one new, pristine, with matching accessories. I got hers after she grew bored. Scratched faces, missing shoes, hair chopped off during one of her makeovers. At school, when Rachel got a B+ in math, we went out for pizza to celebrate. When I won an essay contest, I got a distracted, "Good job, kiddo," as Dad scrolled through emails. I remember one year I broke my arm falling off the monkey bars. My mom didn't take me to the E. My neighbor did, because Mom was busy sewing Rachel's cheerleading uniform for regionals. She showed up 2 hours later. Said, "Well, you always were a little reckless," and handed me an orange juice box like that fixed everything. They weren't cruel. That's what made it so confusing. They never screamed or hit or told me I wasn't good enough. They just looked past me. Again and again. Rachel cried. The world stopped. Rachel failed a test. They called the teacher. Rachel got dumped. We had an emergency family meeting over Thai takeout. I had my heart broken once. Silently. Quietly. In a dorm room in Boston where no one noticed I didn't come home for Thanksgiving that year. They didn't call. They didn't ask. Rachel had a flu? Dad left work early. I had surgery once. Minor, outpatient, but still. They dropped me off and picked me up 4 hours late. Said traffic was bad. I later found out they had stopped for lunch and ran into friends. I never said anything. I told myself it didn't matter. That maybe they just didn't understand me. That maybe I was too emotional, too dramatic, too whatever. But deep down I just wanted to be chosen. Once. Not because I was in crisis. Not because Rachel didn't need them that day. But because they looked at me and thought, she matters. There was one moment though. One that still lives in my chest. Senior year of college, I got accepted into a competitive design fellowship in New York. It was huge. Like career-launching huge. I came home for Thanksgiving early just to tell them in person. I walked through the front door with my suitcase and portfolio in hand, heart bursting with pride. Before I could speak, my mom rushed past me with a stack of pink balloons and baby clothes. "Oh honey," she squealed. "These are perfect for Rachel's gender reveal." I just stood there. They didn't notice I was home. They didn't notice my news. They didn't even notice me. That night, while everyone toasted to baby number 2, I sat in the corner picking at stuffing, my acceptance letter still folded in my coat pocket. 4 days after that lunch, I kept hoping they'd call. That maybe mom would realize how much she'd hurt me. That dad would offer to come to the ceremony, even if it meant missing the damn brunch. That someone, anyone would say, "We were wrong. We'll be there." But silence is louder when you're waiting for love. I didn't tell Ryan at first. I didn't want to ruin the energy, didn't want my wedding to be about who wasn't coming. But it crept into everything. Every flower sample I picked, every seating chart I adjusted. I kept seeing their names, their empty chairs, the walk down the aisle I always imagined Dad beside me for. Finally, I told him. Ryan listened. Quietly. He didn't interrupt, didn't say "you're overreacting," or try to fix it. He just pulled me into his chest and said, "Then we build a new tradition. You me. From scratch." That night I opened my laptop. I stared at a blank email window for what felt like hours. Then I started typing. Subject, about the wedding. "Hi Mom and Dad. Since you've made other plans for that weekend, please consider this a formal uninvitation. There will be no seats reserved for you at the ceremony or reception. I wish Rachel's brunch a beautiful day. Emily." No rage. No guilt trip. No explanation. Just facts. I didn't hit send right away. My finger hovered over the mouse like I needed permission from some invisible jury. But the only person I needed permission from was me. And I gave it. Gone. Done. I expected to feel regret. Or fear. Or even sadness. But what I felt was stillness. Peace almost. Like I had just stepped outside of a house that had always been too cold, too crowded with someone else's expectations. The next morning I got a reply. From Rachel. It wasn't even addressed to me. It was a screenshot of a group text between her, my parents, and Nate. The caption said, "What the hell is her problem?" In the thread my mom had written, "She's overreacting. Don't engage." My dad replied with a thumbs up emoji. Rachel sent me a follow-up text later that day. "Seriously? You're going to ruin your own wedding just because it's not all about you?" I didn't answer. Because here's the truth. I used to think silence was weakness. That not responding meant I'd lost. But now I know silence is power. Silence is the final word. I removed their names from the seating chart. I printed a new program. I asked Ryan's dad to walk me down the aisle. He cried when I asked. Not because he felt honored, though he did, but because he knew what it meant to show up for someone. A week before the wedding I got a card in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was my mother's. Inside was a blank Hallmark card. No note. Just a check for $500 and the words, "For your flowers. Hope it helps. Love, Mom." I ripped it in half and dropped it in the trash. Because if you can't show up for the hard parts, you don't get to buy your way into the beautiful ones. The wedding came and went. It rained that morning, light, steady, misty, like the sky couldn't decide whether to cry or bless us. I remember standing in front of the mirror in my white dress, hair curled, makeup done, and thinking, this is the moment they're missing. Not just any moment, the moment. My father-in-law walked me down the aisle. Ryan's mother pinned antique earrings to my ears, whispered, "You are so loved," and kissed my cheek. And when I said my vows, I meant every word, not just to Ryan but to myself. I was no longer waiting to be chosen. I was choosing me. 2 days later my phone rang. It was Grandma Joan, my dad's mom. We hadn't spoken in a while. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me I needed to. "Emily," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't know." "Didn't know what, Grandma?" "That it was this weekend. The wedding. Your dad told us you were eloping. That you didn't want anyone there. That you didn't want family involved." My stomach twisted. I sat there in silence, cold air rushing into my lungs like ice water. "I would have come, sweetheart. I would have been there if I had known." My throat tightened. "It's okay," I whispered. "You didn't do anything wrong. But someone did." That night I called Aunt Carol, Mom's older sister. The one who always stayed a little removed from the chaos but saw everything. I asked if she'd known I was getting married. She sighed, slow and heavy. "Your mom called a month ago. Said you were doing something private. Symbolic. No guests. She told me not to tell anyone, that it would overwhelm you." "Did she mention the date?" "No. Just said you didn't want a fuss." The anger didn't come in a roar. Came in a slow, sinking weight. A quiet realization that this wasn't a mistake. This was strategy. They didn't just skip my wedding. They rewrote the story so no one else could come either. They took my day, my name, my love, my once-in-a-lifetime moment, and erased it before it even happened. They painted me as the distant daughter, the private one, the artsy emotional type, who didn't want a big deal. And then they stepped back and let the family believe that lie. I sat on the floor of my living room, wedding photos still unopened on my laptop, bouquet wilting in a jar by the window, and all I could think was, they're not missing from my life because they forgot. They're missing because they chose to vanish me. There's a difference between being excluded and being erased. One stings. The other hollowed me out. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not then. I just stared into the dark, wondering how long they had been rehearsing that version of me. The one they told everyone existed. The girl who didn't want anyone around. The one who didn't need family. The one who wouldn't be missed. The morning of the wedding, I woke up to soft rain tapping against the window. The light outside was silver, soft, and everything smelled like wet grass and lavender. It should have made me nervous. But somehow it felt right. Cleansing. Honest. I sat by myself in a little dressing room tucked inside the garden venue, sipping lukewarm coffee and looking out at rows of white chairs glistening with dew. My dress hung on the wall beside me. Simple. Elegant. Nothing flashy. Just me. No one zipped it up for me. No one fussed over my hair or makeup. There was no nervous mother, no shaky-handed father waiting with a trembling speech. Just silence. But it didn't feel empty. It felt clear. At exactly 10:30, Claire, Ryan's mom, knocked gently and peeked in. She smiled, walked in slowly, and held up a small velvet box. "These belong to my mother. And to her mother. I wore them on my wedding day. I'd like you to have them." She opened the box. Inside were 2 delicate pearl earrings. My hands shook as I took them. Not because of their value, but because in that moment I realized what she was giving me wasn't jewelry. It was legacy. Inclusion. Proof that love didn't have to come from blood to be real. I hugged her. We both cried. He helped me with my dress. At 11 sharp, Ryan's father, Stephen, knocked on the other side of the door. "Hey, he asked, offering his arm. I nodded. I didn't have to explain why I'd asked him. He already knew. As we stepped out into the garden, the rain stopped. The sun didn't break through, but it didn't need to. The clouds felt like a blanket draped gently across the sky. The flowers shimmered under the soft gray light. When the music started, I looked up and saw Ryan. He wasn't crying. Not yet. But his hands were clenched, his jaw tight, like he was holding back every emotion all at once. I walked slowly. Every step was deliberate. Not heavy but full. Weighted with everything that had led to this moment. All the years I felt small. All the rooms I'd entered where no one looked up. All the conversations where I'd tried to be heard and was told I was too sensitive, too much, too quiet, too dramatic. I took those steps not as the girl they overlooked, but as the woman I had become because of it. When I reached him, Ryan took my hands and didn't let go once. We wrote our own vows. His were short, steady, and said everything I needed to hear. "You've spent your whole life trying to be seen. Let me be the person who never stops looking at you." I cried then, but not out of grief. Out of relief. Because someone finally saw me, not because they had to. Not because we shared a name, but because they chose to. We kissed. Everyone clapped. There were no grand fireworks. No choreographed dances. Just a quiet reception under hanging lights, laughter echoing through the garden, and toasts from people who showed up not out of obligation, but love. At one point during the reception, I looked around at the small circle of faces. Ryan's siblings, my best friend from college, my coworker who drove 6 hours just to hand me a handwritten note, and I realized something. This was my real family. The people who stayed. The ones who never needed an invitation to care. The ones who didn't ask me to shrink in order to fit their version of who I should be. That night, I sat next to Ryan under the stars, my dress stained with grass, my feet bare, and I whispered, "I think I found home." And for the first time in my life, I wasn't talking about a place, or the people who raised me. I was talking about the people who actually chose me. About 3 weeks after the wedding, I got a call from my uncle, my dad's older brother. We weren't especially close, but he'd always been decent to me. His voice had that usual scratchy drawl, but there was something else in it this time. Hesitation. "Anise. Emmy," he said, "he's the only one who ever still calls me that. I just wanted to check in about the land in Vermont. The piece your grandfather left in his will." I blinked. "What land? You didn't know?" Silence stretched. "He split it between you and Rachel. That's what the will said. Equal halves. I figured you must have signed off on it already, since the lawyer said it's being transferred under Rachel's name now." My blood ran cold. I never signed anything. I never even knew it existed. Another long pause. Then a low, quiet curse from him. "Your dad said you gave verbal consent. That you told them before the wedding you didn't want to deal with the paperwork. That you were starting a new chapter and weren't interested in maintaining family property." I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. I thanked him, hung up, and stared at the floor for what felt like hours. I wasn't just excluded anymore. I was being erased. I checked public records online. It was true. The transfer had been finalized 2 weeks before the wedding. No signature from me, just a parent-to-parent simplification, the kind of loophole you only get when people trust that family wouldn't do something this underhanded. But they would. They did. I texted my father. Short. Direct. "Did you transfer Grandpa's land to Rachel without telling me?" No reply. For 3 days. Then finally, we figured she'd need it more. You have Ryan now. A new life. She's trying to build something. That was it. No apology. No shame. Just logic, cold and transactional. As if Rachel's mortgage mattered more than my place in the family tree. A week later, Rachel posted a photo on Facebook. A sunny afternoon, a wide green field, her husband Nate lifting their toddler in the air. Captioned, "Future home. Couldn't have done it without mom and dad." I stared at the photo until my eyes blurred. That was my grandfather's land. My name had been there once. On paper, in intention, in legacy. And now I was just a ghost in the family narrative. The daughter who didn't care. The one who chose another family and no longer needed to be considered. Ryan offered to help. "We can contest this," he said. "There are legal angles. You can reclaim your share." I believed him, but I shook my head. I wasn't going to chase land from people who had already taken love. You can't sue someone into seeing you. You can't win your way back into a legacy that was never meant to include you. So I let it go. Not because it didn't matter, but because holding on would mean staying tethered to people who'd already decided I was disposable. They wanted to rewrite history. Fine. Let them. I was done begging to be remembered. I'd rather be forgotten than manipulated into a version of myself that never existed. 6 weeks after the wedding, just when I thought the worst was behind me, a message popped up in my inbox. It was from Hannah, a girl I hadn't spoken to since high school. Someone I barely remembered, honestly. No greeting. No small talk. Just a link and 3 words. "Thought you'd want this." I clicked without thinking. It opened Facebook. Rachel's page. And right there, pinned to the top, was a photo album titled, "Our Second Yes Ring, a Vow Renewal Celebration." I didn't breathe. The cover photo showed Rachel in a sleek ivory dress. Not the one from her original wedding, but new, tailored, dramatic. Beside her stood Nate, beaming in a pale gray suit. Behind them, an arch of white roses. 40 chairs. Guests. Beaches. And in the front row, smiling like nothing in the world was wrong, were my parents. I checked the date. Then the timestamp. It was June 3rd. The exact day. The exact hour. My wedding. It wasn't a brunch. It was a wedding. Second wedding. For Rachel. And no one said a word. No one told me. Not even accidentally. Not even a slip. They had created an entire celebration. A full-on vow renewal, with invites and decorations and matching outfits, and they did it while I was walking myself down the aisle. I scrolled through the album, numb. There was a 3-tier cake with gold flakes and orchids. A first dance under string lights. My mother giving a toast, holding a glass of champagne, smiling like she was living her proudest moment. My dad was behind the camera in one shot, catching Rachel and Nate laughing in slow motion, sunlight flaring behind them. And I sat in my living room blinking at the screen trying to wrap my head around the math. The planning. The coordination. The logistics of it all. This wasn't a spontaneous thing. This was planned. Meticulously. Down to the time, the setting, the secrecy. I showed Ryan. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he closed the laptop, walked over and sat beside me. "You okay?" I laughed. Not because it was funny but because it felt surreal. Like a fever dream. "They planned a whole wedding to overshadow mine," I whispered. "And lied to everyone about it." He didn't offer comfort. He didn't say, "That's awful," or "You don't deserve this." He just nodded. Because we both knew the truth. This wasn't about being hurt anymore. This was about being replaced. I kept thinking back to all the excuses they'd given me. How Rachel needed them more. How they were just trying to keep the peace. How I was stronger, more independent. All just code for, "You're not the one we're showing up for." And the worst part? They never expected me to find out. They trusted that I'd stay quiet. That I'd stay in my lane. That I wouldn't dig. That I'd be too grateful for my small wedding, my quiet life, my second-place seat at the family table. But they forgot something. I stopped trying to be chosen. And when you stop chasing love that doesn't want you, you stop protecting the people who threw you away. I printed a photo from our wedding. One where I'm standing under the mist, bouquet in hand, laughing as Ryan spins me in the grass. Then I flipped it over and wrote one sentence on the back. "You missed this. You chose her again. Don't come back." I dropped it in the mail without a return address. No name. No signature. Just truth. And this time they could be the ones to sit in silence and wonder what they did wrong. 2 months after the wedding, a letter arrived. A real letter. Handwritten. No text, no email, no phone call. Just a plain white envelope with my maiden name in cursive on the front. For a long time I didn't touch it. I left it sitting on the kitchen table for 2 days unopened. I'd already buried the version of them I used to believe in. I didn't want to read some carefully scripted excuse that would claw it all back to life. But on the 3rd night after Ryan had gone to bed, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window and opened it. It was from my father. 3 pages. Front and back. Written in that tight, upright handwriting I hadn't seen since he used to pack notes in my lunchbox when I was in 1st grade. "Emily," it began. "We're sorry." He went on. They hadn't realized how much it would hurt me. They didn't think I'd take it so personally. They were trying to support Rachel during a vulnerable time. They thought I was strong enough to handle the distance. They thought I'd understand. Over and over he used that word, understand. Like the problem wasn't what they did, but that I failed to process it the right way. They didn't say, "We chose wrong." They didn't say, "You deserved better." They didn't say, "We're ashamed." Instead they said, "You've always been the independent one. You've always had a thick skin. Rachel, well, Rachel's more delicate." And then the line that made my hands clench the paper so tightly it nearly tore. "You know we love you. You'll always be our daughter. Please come home." Come home. To what? To people who smiled for a second wedding while ignoring my first? To a family who rewrote my story without asking? To a version of myself I spent years shedding? No, there was no home there. Not anymore. I folded the letter slowly. I didn't rip it. I didn't scream. I just placed it back in the envelope and set it on top of the fireplace. Then I struck a match, watched the flame catch the corner and let it burn. Not as an act of rage, but as an act of closure. Ryan found me sitting there a few minutes later. He saw the ashes and didn't ask questions. He just sat beside me and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Do you feel better?" he asked. "No," I said. "But I feel done. Because some apologies aren't meant to heal. Some come not to rebuild trust, but to salvage ego." to soften the optics, to clear a conscience. But that letter wasn't about me. It was about them trying to reel me back in without doing the work of real change. And I wasn't going to bite. I didn't need to prove I was worthy of their love. I needed to remember I had already found love, real, raw, unconditional love, in the people who showed up when they didn't. They say family is everything. But what they don't say, what they never prepare you for, is that sometimes family is the thing you spend your entire life healing from. They tell you to forgive, to be the bigger person, to understand their generation, to give second chances, third chances, 10th chances. But no one ever looks at the child who kept showing up, kept smiling through disappointment, kept swallowing tears and calling it grace, and says, you don't owe them anything. I spent 27 years waiting to be chosen. I tried harder, stayed quieter, smiled wider, dimmed myself so others could shine. I mistook tolerance for love. I mistook silence for peace. I mistook survival for belonging. But I know better now. My parents didn't lose me the day they skipped my wedding. They didn't lose me when they gave my grandfather's land to someone else, or when they rewrote my ceremony as a secret. They didn't lose me when they picked a second wedding over my first. They lost me the first time they made me feel like I had to earn my place in their lives. The first time they told me I was strong, so they wouldn't have to be gentle. The first time they handed Rachel everything and told me to be happy with scraps. They didn't lose me on one day. They lost me in 1,000 small moments where I needed them and they weren't there. And this time I didn't beg to be let back in. I didn't knock on the door or stand outside hoping they'd notice I was gone. I walked away. And in doing so I found something better. I found a husband who listens without fixing. In-laws who include me without comparison. Friends who remember my birthday, show up to my art shows and don't call me too sensitive when I cry at commercials. I found a family that doesn't share my DNA but shares my joy, my grief, my hopes, my peace. I used to ache for a seat at their table. Now, I've built my own. And the people sitting around it, they see me, they hear me, they choose me, every single time. So no, I don't miss them. I miss the version of them I imagined. The parents I created in my head. The ones who never existed. But I don't grieve what I lost anymore. Because what they took from me was never love. And what I have now. It may be smaller. But it's real. And that is more than enough.